What can cause a non-peaceful death? In this video, I'm going to discuss one of the main reasons for a non-peaceful death, which is usually terminal agitation. So what is it? Why does it happen? And how can we help it? And I'll also show you footage of real life terminal agitation. Terminal agitation can happen at the end of life, and it can look different depending on the person's age, their diagnosis, and just their personality sometimes. Doesn't happen with everybody, but it can happen, and the severity of it can change as well. So there's really no rhyme or reason to it at times, which can be really frustrating. So how does it manifest? It can manifest differently in other people, but it's usually something like severe restlessness. So if they can walk, they may be up and just walking back and forth all around the house. And if you try to interrupt their walking or stop them and say, hey, what are you doing? Where are you going? Or you might fall, be careful. They don't seem to register what you're saying, or maybe even that you're actually there. So they seem like they're in their own little world and they're sort of milling around the house. That can be one form of terminal agitation. It also can look like someone who is bedbound, but they're rolling around the bed, or they're restless, or they're continuously trying to get out of bed, but they can't physically get out of bed. So it's just a motion of trying to get out of bed. Sometimes it can manifest in them just making noises. They could be bedbound, not really moving around, but they're yelling, or they're trying to speak, but they don't really make sense. Or they're even yelling, help me, help me. They just seem scared, right? Scared or agitated. If you try to touch them, don't touch me. Or they don't acknowledge that you're there. There's no calming them down. Hence, again, why this can be so hard. Now, the difference between terminal agitation and something like delirium or ICU psychosis is that it usually happens towards the end of life, like when someone's in that transitional period before they get to the actively dying period. So a lot of times people with dementia who are really restless and agitated, or they get like that towards the evening time, which we call sundowners, that is a little different than terminal agitation. So someone with dementia or Alzheimer's can have stuff that looks like terminal agitation, but because they're not at the end of their life, it's usually something just a little different that's pertaining to their disease. So why does this happen? That is one of the biggest problems in hospice care, is sometimes we don't know. We don't know why it's happening. So we try to figure it out. We try to figure out, are they taking new medications that are making them like this? Or is there a combination of medications that are making them like this? Are they in pain? Is there a reason for their confusion? Maybe like someone with liver failure, if their ammonia levels go up, they can get really, really confused, and that can cause them to be like this. So we try to look at their disease, see if there's a common reason why they may be suddenly agitated. Sometimes it's because they have to urinate, but they can't. Sometimes it's because they have to defecate, but they can't. They could be impacted. Like hospice nurse Penny once told me, we look at the 3 P's. Are they in pain? Do they have to pee? Do they have to poop? So those things can also cause that restlessness, that terminal agitation. So we try to look for all the reasons why someone could be agitated. And if we can figure out those things, we will work on that one thing. Right? So if they are constipated and they're impacted, we will give suppositories to try to help them go to the bathroom. If they need to urinate but they can't, we may place a Foley catheter to help them urinate. And you will see that if that is the cause of their agitation, the second it's relieved, they usually instantly relax. And it's a really, really gratifying feeling as a healthcare worker and as a family member when that actually works and helps. Now, the difficult part is sometimes, no matter what we do, we can't really find a reason. We've given pain medicine. They're okay. They're not impacted. They can urinate. They aren't on any new medications. So there's nothing we can really figure out why they are acting this way. When that happens, we will categorize it as terminal agitation. So what can we do about this? Many times, it is a matter of medicating. So a lot of times we will medicate, and depending on how severe their agitation is, we will give a lot of medication to basically help them sleep, help them relax, try to get them not agitated, in hopes of later when the medication wears off, they wake up a little more clear, a little less agitated. And that can help a lot. A lot of times it's like all they need is a lot of medications on board because they're basically elevated so high, a little bit of medication doesn't work. So we have to give a lot of medication to get them to sleep, to eventually awaken and be less agitated. Now, depending on what their disease is, they may still be confused and disoriented because that's their disease process, but hopefully less agitated, less restless. A lot of times, the hard part is it's not always that easy. It's not like, oh, we just give a little medication and now they're fine. No, with terminal agitation, specifically with some diseases and some people's personalities, whatever may play into it, their terminal agitation is extreme, or they're either asleep with medication and comfortable, or awake and not comfortable and kind of agitated. In those cases, we have to educate the families and kind of work together to weigh out the risk versus benefit. You know, the risks of them being awake versus the benefit of them being awake. And sometimes that means we heavily medicate someone so they can be comfortable in their last few days of life. Now let's look at some real life footage of what terminal agitation can look like. I'm going to be showing 3 different videos. I will give you a trigger warning before I show them, and I will discuss before and after what you're seeing. I wanted to show 3 different versions because I wanted you to see that there are different types of terminal agitation. It can look and manifest in different ways depending on the person and their disease. And to be clear, these are not my patients, and I have been given verbal and written permission by the families to show these videos. So I'm going to show you the first video. I'll give you a trigger warning before, and then I'll explain after. So trigger warning, here's the first video. Okay. So this is a short version of what terminal agitation can look like in someone who is bedbound and looking like they're getting towards the actively dying phase. I wanted to show you that, you know, they could be laying there peaceful and then suddenly just like kind of fly up in bed and be clearing their throat or just sort of look and act agitated. This would go on over and over and over again. What I showed you in the clip is just a short little clip of it happening once, but with terminal agitation, it would continue to happen over and over and over again. So you wouldn't really be able to leave that person's side because you'd be afraid of them hurting themselves or falling out of bed. And in this case, we would do all the things to try to figure out, you know, are they in pain? What's going on with them? How can we help? Is something new happening? Again, do they need to go to the bathroom? These are all the things the nurse would be doing to see how they could help with the terminal agitation. And at the end of the day, it might be a matter of needing to medicate. In this next video, you'll see a gentleman lying in bed, and I want you to pay close attention to his legs, hands, and feet. This is a great example of mild terminal agitation that also can be confused if someone has dementia, something that they frequently do that might not be terminal agitation, but you'll see it a lot. So trigger warning, here's the video. Okay, so that's a great example of what many people will see their loved ones doing at the end of life. They're sort of picking at the blankets, they're kicking around. I think if I were to have more of this video, this person would be a big fall risk. You know, this would be a patient that we would find outside of their bed in the morning because they tried to get out of bed throughout the night. What you're witnessing there is like this mild to moderate restlessness and agitation that we see in terminally agitated people, so people who are at the end of their life. And then also we see this often in any kind of dementia patient. They don't necessarily have to be in the end stages of that, but we will see it often. Mostly with these patients, we focus on trying to keep them safe. So if medication is the way to go because we can't keep them safe safe in bed or otherwise, then we will do that. But we also will try to not medicate and maybe have a sitter or someone there just to keep them safe while they're in bed. It always just depends. Now, this last video to me may seem like the most disturbing because it's the one that's showing you what verbal terminal agitation can look like. Someone moaning, someone kind of yelling. It can feel scary. It can feel like bad to watch, but I think it's important to show you a real example of what this could look like. And I thank the families who allow me to show these videos. It's such a great educational point. Trigger warning, here is the video. Okay, so perfect example of what terminal agitation, like verbal terminal agitation, can look like. Someone kind of yelling, someone where you can't really console them no matter what you do. And just because I have spoken with this family and I know the history of this, they did eventually get her very comfortable. But there is a difference between yelling because of pain and yelling because of terminal agitation. And we usually can figure this out over time. You know, we treat pain, we give medications for pain. They may even verbally say they're not in pain, but then still yell and act restless. That's how we can tell and know that it's more terminal agitation than it is pain. And in certain circumstances, this one probably being a perfect circumstance where we probably medicate until they are calm, until they are sleeping, in hopes that eventually when they wake up from the medication, they are a little more calm. At the end of the day, a lot of terminal agitation is treated through medication because we have to get the person to relax to keep them safe, keep them calm, keep them comfortable. But there are other things we can do besides medication, like lowering stimuli. So if someone's really, really restless in bed, a lot of times if we like calm the room down, maybe turn down the lights, not talk very loudly, turn off the TV, have something relaxing going on, or even calming words, those things can help decrease that person's agitation or restlessness. A lot of times as well, if we can kind of get it early, like not wait until it's really, really escalated, it's a little easier to gain control of it, even with medication. So if you start seeing like first signs of agitation, which could be not sleeping at all at night, find them like sitting up when you walk in the morning to go change them, they're already sitting up and you're kind of like, whoa, how'd you do that? To me, those are little signs that they may start becoming restless and agitated. We want to nip it in the butt before it gets too severe. Once it's severe, it's harder to manage. These things at the end of life can feel so distressing for the patient and the families. So I think it's important that you know they can happen before they do. So if it does, you know what it is and you know what you can do about it.